This is TLC to go.
Hey everyone, welcome back. As health sciences faculty, we're always looking for new ways to up our teaching game, right? Our students are the future of healthcare, and we want to make sure they're really getting the most out of our classes.
Absolutely. And with everything else on our plates, finding the time and the right strategies can feel like a challenge sometimes.
It really can. So that's what we're diving into today, something that can make a real difference for our students. We're talking about class discussions and how to make them a truly effective learning tool, especially for those complex health sciences concepts.
I like it, getting back to basics.
Exactly. And we've got a great resource to guide us, this one from the UTHSC Teaching and Learning Center. It's called Leading a Class Discussion, and it's super recent. It was just reviewed in March of this year, so it's definitely up to date with the latest thinking on teaching and learning.
Sounds like a great place to start.
It really is. Our mission today is to break down this resource and give you some practical tips, things you can actually implement in your classes tomorrow. Let's uncover why these discussions are so powerful and how to really make them work for your students.
Okay, so let's start with the why. Why should we even bother with class discussions? We've got packed schedules, tons of material to cover. So what makes discussions worth that time?
That's a key question, right? And this TLC guide makes a really strong case for it. One of the first things it highlights is the amazing community-building power of discussions. When students can share their thoughts and hear different perspectives, it creates a much more engaging and collaborative learning environment.
I've noticed that in my own classes. That sense of community can make a big difference.
It really does. And from a teaching standpoint, it gives us a window into their thinking. We can see in real time how well they're understanding the material. It's like built-in informal assessment. If someone's totally off base or has a misconception, we can address it right then and there.
That's a huge advantage, particularly in health sciences where the concepts can get pretty complex. We need to know if those foundational pieces are clicking for our students.
Exactly. And, this all ties into the idea of active learning, which the guide talks about, too. They even cite some research by Millis from back in 2012, which showed that when students actively participate in their learning, not just passively listen, they remember the information better.
I remember reading that study. It really highlighted how active learning leads to better recall and understanding.
Right. And it's not just about remembering facts. Active learning can actually make students feel more engaged and more positive about learning in general. Plus, and this is really interesting, some studies suggest it can even contribute to better student retention. So they're more likely to stay in the program and ultimately succeed.
That's a powerful point, especially when you think about the demands of health sciences programs. We want to give our students every advantage to help them thrive.
For sure. And speaking of success, the guide also mentions a study from 2017, this one by Romnan and Pound. They found a strong link between a positive, supportive classroom community, the kind we can foster through discussions, and improved learning and retention, specifically in medical education and practice. So it's not just a feel-good thing, it's actually linked to better outcomes for our future healthcare professionals.
So we've established that discussions have clear benefits. Now, the big question is, how do we actually implement them effectively? What are some tangible strategies we can use?
That's where this TLC guide really shines. It goes beyond the theory and dives right into the practical stuff. So they break down the process into a few key areas.
Okay, let's hear them. What's the first step?
Well, they start by emphasizing the importance of setting the right tone for discussion. It's all about creating an environment of respect and open dialogue where everyone feels comfortable sharing their thoughts, even if they're unsure or have a different perspective.
I like that. It's crucial for students to feel safe to voice their opinions and even challenge assumptions, especially in health sciences where critical thinking is so important.
Absolutely. And one concrete tip they suggest is to actually include clear discussion guidelines in our syllabi. Lay out the ground rules from the very beginning.
Makes sense. Set those expectations early.
Yeah, but here's what I found particularly interesting. They even suggest having our students collaborate on developing those guidelines.
Oh, that's a great idea. When students have ownership in setting the rules, they're much more likely to follow them.
Exactly. It's about fostering that sense of mutual respect and shared responsibility for creating a positive learning environment. And I think that's particularly important in health sciences, where we often deal with sensitive topics that require a delicate touch and open-mindedness.
Definitely. So we've set the tone. What's next?
Next comes preparation. And the guide really emphasizes this. Before we even think about specific questions or activities, We need to have a crystal clear learning goal in mind. What do we want our students to get out of this particular discussion?
I see. It's about aligning the discussion with our overall course objectives. What skills or knowledge do we want them to develop through this activity?
Exactly. And once we have that goal in mind, then we can think about which discussion format will best serve that purpose. The guide mentions different models like formal debates, structured small group discussions, or more informal, free-flowing conversations. It all depends on the topic and what we're aiming for.
Right. So if I wanted to, say, encourage deeper critical analysis of a complex meta case, I might opt for a small group discussion where they can really delve into the details and bounce ideas off each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And let's not forget about pre-discussion materials. The guide stresses the importance of giving our students something to work with beforehand, like relevant journal articles, case studies focusing on specific health issues, even policy briefs, anything that will prepare them for a richer, more informed discussion.
It makes a huge difference, right? I mean, if we're going to discuss a challenging ethical dilemma in healthcare, giving students a chance to grapple with some background reading or a case study beforehand will make the discussion much more insightful.
Totally agree. It's about setting them up for success. Now, here's something I think a lot of faculty struggle with. How do we actually assess student learning during a discussion? It can feel kind of nebulous, especially compared to something like a test or a paper.
Yeah, it's definitely a different kind of assessment. The guide encourages us to move beyond traditional grading methods and really pay attention to what our students are saying and how they're engaging with the material. It's about actively listening for signs of understanding or, maybe even some red flags that signal confusion.
So it's like a real-time gauge of their comprehension.
Precisely. For example, let's say we're discussing the latest research on a particular treatment modality. Are students using the correct terminology? Are they able to connect the theoretical concepts to real-world clinical applications? Are they making insightful connections between different pieces of information? Those are the kind of things we can observe during a discussion.
And that allows us to adjust our teaching on the fly,
Yeah.
right? If we see that a lot of students are struggling with a particular concept, we can address it right away or plan to revisit it in a different way.
Absolutely. It's all about being responsive to our students' needs in the moment.
Now, the guide also makes a great point about aligning our discussion leadership style with our own teaching personalities.
Yeah.
It's not about trying to be someone we're not.
Yes. I was going to say authenticity is so important. Students can spot a fake a mile away.
Exactly. Some of us might be more comfortable with a very structured question and answer format, while others thrive in a more free-flowing conversational setting. The key is to find what feels natural to us and allows us to create a space where all students feel welcome to participate, especially when dealing with those potentially sensitive health-related topics where some students might be a little more hesitant to speak up.
I think that's where things like active listening and nonverbal cues become super important. We need to show students that we genuinely value their contributions and create a safe space for them to share their thoughts, even if they're different from our own or from their peers.
Absolutely. And for those who might be new to this or feeling a little overwhelmed, the guide offers some reassuring advice. Start small.
That's such a helpful reminder, isn't it? We don't need to transform our entire teaching style overnight.
Not at all. They suggest beginning with just one focused discussion, maybe tied to a specific learning objective in one of our courses. It's a manageable way to dip our toes into the water, see what works, and build from there. And as we get more comfortable, we can gradually incorporate more discussions into our teaching.
And the guide even points to some additional resources that can help. They mention the University of Michigan CRLT resource on using class discussion questions, which has a ton of great prompts to get those conversations flowing.
Right. And for those who might be tackling some of those tougher topics in health sciences, they recommend checking out a past TLC webinar called Saying the Right Thing: How to Prepare Learners for Difficult Conversations, which was recorded in February 2023. They also mentioned a handbook by Kay Landis called Start Talking, a handbook for engaging difficult dialogues in higher education. Sounds like a great resource.
So it sounds like we've covered a lot of ground here. For our busy health sciences faculty listening in, what are the key takeaways?
Well, first and foremost, we've seen just how powerful class discussions can be. They're not just a break from lecturing. They're a way to actively engage our students, help them build a strong community, and really solidify their learning, especially when it comes to those complex health science concepts.
Absolutely. And the TLC guide gives us some clear and actionable strategies to make those discussions truly effective. We talked about setting the tone, preparing thoroughly with learning goals and pre-discussion materials, assessing learning in real time, finding our own leadership style, and starting small.
And ultimately, all of this is about helping our students succeed, right? They're the ones who are going to be caring for patients, conducting research, shaping the future of healthcare.
Couldn't agree more. And that brings us to a final thought for our listeners today. Thinking about the specific challenges and complexities within your own area of health sciences, what's one small change you could make in your next course to incorporate more active discussion around a key learning objective? Maybe it's trying out one of those discussion models we mentioned, or picking a topic that you know will spark debate and really get those critical thinking skills flowing. Take some time to reflect on that. And if you need more inspiration, check out those great resources from the UTHSC Teaching and Learning Center. Until next time, everyone. See you later.